Hello, my name is David Robinson, and I'm a second-year PhD student in the physics department at the University of Michigan. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a research project I've been working on about how galaxies cool down. I'd like to thank my collaborators on this project, Nikolai Needon and my advisor, Camille Avestruz. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and wondered how it came to look the way that it does? One important piece of that puzzle is in learning about the history of the over 5,000 different galaxies we can see in this image. And by galaxy, I mean a structure made up of stars, gas, and other matter that we can't see, all held together by the force of gravity. Now, unfortunately, in this situation, we don't have the luxury of experiment. We can't build a toy universe and check to see that it evolves to look like this, and we also can't go backwards in time and directly observe the history of these galaxies. So instead, the next best thing is simulating the formation of galaxies. And by that, I mean that we tell a computer the relevant physics we think is involved in the formation of galaxies, and we also give the computer some sort of initial conditions early in the universe, and the computer then follows how this fake universe evolves with time, and we can compare that fake universe to the universe that we directly observe. And the hope is that simulations can shed light on the formation of the galaxies in this image and also tell us more about the history of our own galaxy, the Milky Way. In order to do those simulations, we need to have a very good handle on the physics that's involved in the formation of galaxies. And today I'm going to be focusing on one small part of that process, how gas clouds cool down. And to think about why that's important, it helps to look at something completely different, overheating computers. If you're anything like me, you've probably had way too many tabs open in a browser on your computer, like I do in this screenshot. And when that happens, my computer starts to overheat. If I want the computer to go back to its normal working speed, it needs to be able to cool down. And the way that a laptop computer tends to do that is by running a small fan which vents air away from the computer, cooling it down, as I've shown schematically on this slide. The details of how that works are of no concern here, but what you should keep in mind is that if you keep doing whatever led the computer to overheat, or if you block the vents where the fan blows air away from the computer, or even if you have the computer outside in direct sunlight on a hot day, the fan might not be able to cool the computer down enough, and then the computer might still crash. A very similar process of overheating and cooling happens in the formation of galaxies. One step in the process of galaxy formation is clouds of gas collapsing under the influence of gravity to form structures. As those clouds collapse, they naturally heat up. And one consequence of that heating is that the pressure of the gas increases, which resists the gas collapsing any further. In order for the gas to collapse enough to form a galaxy, it needs some way to get rid of the excess heat that it gained by collapsing. The way that gas clouds release energy and cool down is by releasing flashes of light. And all a flash of light is a simple form of energy. It turns out that gases can only emit certain colors of light. For example, here are some of the colors that can be emitted by gases made of hydrogen and helium. Some of these colors will be emitted more often than others, and each flash of blue light releases more energy than each flash of red light. And so, how often each color is emitted corresponds pretty directly to how easily the gas can cool down. As you might imagine, how easily the gas can cool down depends very strongly on some properties of the gas, like how hot it is, how dense it is, and even what it's made of. And physicists already know how those dependencies work. Given the properties of a gas, we can calculate how easily it will cool down. But what makes this topic worthy of research is that how easily a gas can cool down doesn't just depend on the gas itself. It also depends on what environment the gas is in. Specifically, it depends on what light is already shining on the gas. And you can imagine why that might be true, because since gases cool down by releasing flashes of light, when gases absorb flashes of light, they'll heat up, and that changes how easily the gas can cool down. That's really important in the process of the formation of galaxies because the gas clouds collapsing to form galaxies tend to contain some of the most potent sources of light in our universe, stars. So The main research question that I'm working on is, how can we describe the way that galaxies cool down in the presence of stars? The way that I approach this problem is by looking at simulations of galaxy formation. Given a simulated galaxy, for each bit of gas in the galaxy, we can calculate how easily that bit cools down. And when I say bit of galaxy, I mean a pixel like in a digital photograph. For example, if you look at the photograph of trees on the left of this slide, you can see that when you zoom in, as on the right, you see that you don't always get the same level of detail. And when you zoom in far enough, you see that the image is actually made up of little tiny single colored squares called pixels. Simulations work very similarly. And so for each pixel, we can't see any detail to the gas inside the pixel. All of the gas in each pixel is just the same. And so for each pixel, the simulation tells us how hot the gas is there, how dense it is, and what light is shining on it. And given that, we can calculate how easily the gas in that pixel cools down. But if you look at this slide, you can see that the individual pixels don't tell us everything we want to know. And in fact, if you looked at just the image on the right, you would have a very difficult time figuring out what the photograph is of. And so what we really want to do is figure out how we can effectively zoom out and look, instead of at each individual pixel, at how the entire galaxy cools down as a whole. And so the end result of this project is, for the many, many galaxies in the simulation, we can figure out how each galaxy cools down, and we end up with a catalog of simulated galaxies and how easily they can cool down. And so then we can look at how things like how old the galaxy is and how big it is affect how easily the galaxy can cool down for this large set of simulated galaxies. And so to wrap up, let's recall some of the reasons why we care about simulated galaxies. And one big reason is that when we look out into the universe, like in this telescope image I showed earlier, we can see that the universe isn't the same everywhere. In some places there are galaxies, in some places we see only darkness, and also the galaxies that we see vary immensely. But we think that the physics governing the formation of galaxies is the same throughout the entire universe. So one thing that simulations can shed light on is how, given appropriate initial conditions, the same physics can lead to the sheer variety of galaxies that we see in images like this one. Thank you.